Well, hey everyone, it's Brian Zake from Surf City Financial Group, and I want to first of all thank you for watching this short presentation. I will try to keep it short, but I do think you'll find it interesting because when planning for retirement, you have several obstacles to a safe retirement, and that's taxes, and that's a whole nother conversation. Always happy to have stock market corrections. That's that whole sequence of return thing. If anyone knows me, I talk about a lot because I think it's really important. Um, Inflation, healthcare costs, and longevity risk. Now, inflation is important because I know, for instance, we know that Social Security gets a COLA, but kind of really doesn't keep up with inflation. And I see a lot of pensions that don't have a COLA. In other words, that cost of living increases. So we think that's really important to find a way to solve that problem. Healthcare costs. And the other one is longevity risk, because we know healthcare costs be expensive, but longevity risk exposes you to all these things more and more and more. So, we all want to live a long life and live a healthy life. But the longer we live, the more, and we've seen it, just think of the last 15 years, for instance, what we've experienced with the stock market, some huge drops, some big increases, and that's where that whole sequence of return risk, because, when I'm talking about sequence of returns, a lot of times what's happening is when you're withdrawing money from a stock market account, we never like taking money out of a stock market account when it's down. And that's why having multiple buckets of money and having ways to be able to leave that money alone, if at all possible, when you do take it, if you do have money in the market. I think it's not a bad thing to always have some money in the market. I mean, maybe a little less as you get older, but kind of depends on your situation. So let's get into it a little bit here, right? Because what we're seeing, what we're going to be showing you today is using an annuity for income, for part of your income. And then versus withdrawals out of a traditional investment account and seeing how that does. All right, so why don't we get started here? Oh, forgot. Okay, let's talk rates return versus, we're talking about rates return versus withdrawals and all that, but let's talk about our scenario. Let's say we have $250,000, right? And we're a 55-year-old who wants to start taking income 10 years later, in other words, after 65th birthday sometime. We're going to compare, say we've put our money, that $250,000, in a indexed account making 3% a year. Now, one thing I always say about index annuities, I'm always looking from 3 to 5% out of these things, and typically they do it. I mean, and better. But that's what we're looking for. So I used a 3% starting at 4%. Now, let's talk a little bit about withdrawal rates, because the old rule of thumb used to be what they called the safe withdrawal rate was 4%. But retirement research has actually downgraded that to under 3%, like 2.8 or something like that, because how the 4% rule works, meaning you have an investment portfolio, you take 4% a year out of it, and then you have to ratchet up for inflation. So you're actually taking more and more and more and more out every year. But theoretically, it would last your whole life, whatever your whole life happened to be. And that's the theory behind it. But like I said, researchers have actually downgraded that. I know, like Wayne Fowle and a few of those others. But we're going to give them the benefit down on this one. We're going to use that 4% rate, what they used to call the 4% safe rate of return. So what we're going to, now if you see here, if we had an equities-based account making 7% every year, no losses, no increase, I'm talking about actually making 7% a year, you would actually get a starting income using a 4% rule of $19,672. So 7% a year, that $250,000 starting out, making 7% a year, use a 4% rule. Now you're You're almost keeping up with the annuity. You're pretty close. It's just under it, about $1,000 under it, right? $800. So now with that annuity making 4%, what do we have to do to get it up there to match the annuity? Well, using that again, the equity is a match the annuity. You would have to actually return 7.43%. In other words, add more risk. Or you'd have to increase your withdrawal rate from 4% to 4.16, which again is adding more risk, meaning you'd likely run out of money sooner. Or start out with more money, 260, 294. Trouble is, what if you don't have more money, right? So that's the annuity making 3%. Well, what if we kicked it up a notch? What if we had an annuity that was actually performing at 4% a year, right? 4% rate of return. So same 250, but a 4% rate of return, same scenario. Now, in that case, with the 4% rate of return, that annuity is now going to kick out $25,775,000 a start. Well, now what is that equities account going to have to do? So we know what we've seen in the past. So the equities account, now to keep up with that annuity making 4%, either going to have to do 9.93 or you're going to have to raise the withdrawal rate at 5.24 or start out with 327,572. So you're going to have to come with a lot more money or take a lot more risk to match that annuity. Now let's go to actual historical data, right? Let's look at historical returns. Now I always say historical returns give us those ideas and what we can expect to see. We know it's not going to match it exactly, but typically it's going to be kind of similar. So let's take a look here. So doing a historical look back, use that same annuity with a 10-year look back, the income payment actually be pretty close, $20,657. Now, this annuity will keep up with inflation because it is an increasing income annuity. And later on, I'm going to show you how that actually works. So in year 5, now this annuity would be kicking out $26,309 based on a look back. So at age 70. So at age 75, now we're up to $35,778. Age 80, now we're kicking out $45,605. So the annuity is actually doing a pretty good job of keeping up with inflation. Or I would say it's actually beating inflation. Again, that's another historical thing. But so we're seeing now we're up to 62. So at age 90, you would now be receiving $87,692,000 out of this annuity. So at that point, total income received at age 90, you would have received $1,146,201 from that annuity. Not bad. I mean, that's a pretty good yield in my book. And let's take that out to age 100. So if you manage to live to age 100, you would now be receiving an income of $169,578 using a historical look back for a net yield of $2,350,000, almost $2,351,000. So pretty good yield for your $250,000 deposit. Well, let's see what our mythical or hypothetical return would look like. How would that 7% return? If we got 7% a year, every year, never going up, never going down, just 7% a year, what would we do in an equities account? Okay. So again, we're trying to keep up with the annuity. So remember, we're doing the same withdrawals that the annuity gave us out of the 7% return. Well, okay, we're at age 90. We kept up with it. We kept up with the annuity, making 7% a year, no losses, just 7% a year. It actually kept up the annuity to age 90, so it kicked out that same $1,146,000. But It did run out at age 92. Now, this works great if you live to 91. Doesn't work so great if you go beyond that. So now we're going to dig a little bit deeper. We're going to push aside that guaranteed 7% return because we know that would truly be magical in an equities account. Let's actually look at historical data. We pulled out basically the last 20 years of the Dow Jones Industrial Average. And again, we're making the Dow key. We're taking withdrawals off of this account, matching the annuity, what the annuity is producing. It ran out basically at age 79, but we're out of money at age 80. Done. So what did this thing yield? $397,000 is all this would yield for our $250,000 deposit after that period of time. That's not good if you live to 80, and which is a very likely scenario for most people. So let's look at the S&P, which is kind of our leading indicator out there that most people look to. Like the total return fund. But we're actually using the S&P total return, meaning we're actually adding in dividends and everything. So again, we're matching the annuity, right? So let's see how it does. Okay, ran out at age 85. So it went a little longer than the Dow, but it ran out at age 85. So what did it yield? 403,106. So it did a little better than the Dow. Now, the one thing I wanted to mention here is if you added in a typical 1% management fee into an account, you're now down to 391,000. So this matters, because that, for instance, that annuity has no fees in it. This account does have, most managed accounts will have some sort of fee in it. And, like I was saying before, I always think you should have multiple buckets of money anyway, because the whole sequence of return, this is kind of what's burning us here. Because if you look at the average return versus the actual return, because I always say if you take a 30% loss in the market, you need about 45 to get back to 46 to get back to where you were. So and then now if you take the money out of it, that's even a bigger deal. And that's kind of what we're seeing here. Where we continue to draw money out of this account, no matter if it's up, no matter if it's down. So, and you see what happens. We get a low yield. So ideally, you have a guaranteed income account, and you have accounts that you're doing withdrawal out of, and where when the markets go down, you can actually leave it alone, let it come back, and then take your withdrawals. So that's the ideal way to do it. And that's how we try to set things up here. So how in the heck does this type of annuity work? How does it do this? Well, let's go to the illustration. Here's our illustration. Here's our annuity illustration. This is our 10-year look back illustration. So we're seeing here that we put the 250,000 in, right here. Okay. Now, this column is the actual index returns this annuity would get over the last 10 years. In other words, the actual returns that you would get credited with. Now, what's happened with this particular annuity is for the deferral period, they give you only 50% of that in your cash account, which is, but the kicker is they actually give you 250% in your income account while you're deferring. So you're seeing this 247 or even this 627 here. In your cash account, it turns into 3.14. In your protected income account, you get 15.68. This becomes very important as we go forward because there is a switch made once you start taking income. Now that switch is, you're seeing here, for instance, the 6.44 return. Now you're getting the whole 100% of your return in your cash account. So your 644 stays 644, but Once you start taking money, instead of 2.50, the 250% bump, you get a 150% bump. So the 644 turns to 966. Well, that's still really good because we have another annuity that gives you full 100% and 150% all the way through. And to me, it sort of depends on what you're trying to accomplish, which one you use. But when you look at this thing, you're seeing that this return here, it tells you how much of a raise you're going to get in your income. For instance, you're seeing we got a 9.66 return. So your 20,657 now goes to 22,655. If you take it down now, here's a small one and here's a big one, right? So this 188 goes from 30,126 up to 30,684. But the 16.59 goes from 30,684 to 35,788 right here, right? So your raises will be different every year, and you may get a zero. I mean, we see that over that historical look back, you did have 1 0 year. Now there are fixed accounts, so we can actually defeat that because even your fixed account, say it's a 2% fixed account, which is kind of I think what it is right now in this annuity, you can actually get you will get that same 50% bonus on top of that. So meaning if you have a 2% fixed account, it's going to get 3% return. So, but basically that's what I'm saying here. Now the other thing is I want to point out, it does run out of money. It actually runs out of money a little quicker than some of those other accounts just because of functionality of this thing. But you notice, I always say you may run out of cash, but you don't run out of income because you'll see in here just over this period of time of taking this income, this account yielded to age 85, $813,000 would have yielded based off of this 10-year look back on this historical look back. So again, you can live at 120. It's going to keep functioning this exact same way year after year. Another little kicker: this annuity actually has a long-term care benefit. So while you have cash in this annuity, what's going to happen is they will double your payment. Now, when you do run out of cash, you will actually go back to where you would have been. The other thing, you can actually turn part of your income off. That way you can, if you don't need as much that year, say you've got this big old return, and you don't need it all. Maybe you only need, in this case, maybe you only need 40,000, right? Or let me go back up here. Say you only need 25,000 here. You could actually leave that in, which will stay in the cash account, which will still kick off interest. So could make your cash account last a little bit longer, kind of thing. You can actually turn it on, turn it off. So there's a lot of flexibility in this product. So that's basically how it works. If you have any questions on this or want to see how this would fit into your portfolio in your retirement plan, that's what we do. Or if there's another one that's actually a little bit better for you, but we're here to answer questions. So let me know if you have any questions. I hope you found this interesting, and thank you for watching. Take care. Brian Zeke here. Bye-bye.